Hi, I'm Curious Vedant, and welcome to the first episode of Season 7, the 145th episode of my podcast. So, today I have a very special guest, Aditya N, a music composer and producer, and a singer as well. He is part of the famed musical duo of Aditya N and Nayantara Bhatkal. He has produced music for many famous Bollywood movies such as Brahmastra, 83, and the Netflix show Class, among many more. He has been nominated for Asia Television Awards and the Filmfare OTT Awards. He is well known for producing the song Deva Deva from Brahmastra. Hi Aditya, welcome to my show. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey Vedant, I'm so glad I'm here, man. This is so cool. And the seventh, what 145th? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So when did you start? Like, how old were you when you started?
So I think I was started this during like the lockdown time. Back then I used to do it once every week. As I was getting older, I had more school homework and stuff to do, and I
Yeah.
picked up my drums, my football training and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
now it's become whenever I like interview someone.
That's it's very cool. It's incredibly in inspiring to see somebody so young just like do this. And if you don't mind me asking, what got you to do this?
So it wasn't really like a what, it was more of a who. I mean, it was, I think, like during the lockdown, one of the starting days, my
Mhm.
dad came up to me with the idea of maybe starting a podcast or something because
Mhm.
I listened to a lot of things like podcasts, music, and things like that. And I, according to my parents, I'm like really conversational. So they
Mhm.
thought it would be a good idea to start it. And my first episode was with my mom in the summer of 2020,
Wow,
and
amazing.
things have just picked on from there. And I've
That's
been going for quite a while.
That's very cool. I'm incredibly inspired.
Uh,
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on the show. I mean, I really, really, really love music and especially music production.
I'm so glad that it means a lot when somebody says music production because it's a whole other world of work that very few actually tend to know about.
So, like I said, I love music and music production, and I'm also learning the drums. But I always wonder, can you tell me the process of making a song? Like, what goes into making a song?
Okay, so let's just break it down a bit. I think there are roughly 4 to 5 parts. It's not a set thing, but I think there's composition, which is the tune. In any song needs a tune, right? Whether it's a song which is being sung or being played, whatever it is, it still needs a tune that sort of drives it, right? So that's the composition. After the composition, there are words. You need the words in a song. If it's if it's a song which will be sung, so you have to have somebody to write the words for you. Or if you write, then there's music production. Now, music production in the time of the Beatles, for example, music production was a whole other game. What used to happen at that time was everyone would play things live. So you had a music an arranger for films who would arrange which person will play what. And like, say if you have strings and you've got drums and you have a bass, for example, and a piano. So the arranger will write the parts for each one of these guys. Now, in the modern day, arrangement is a part of music production, because what we do is that we sort of figure out what we need. Like, say, if I need strings, bass, piano, and drums, I actually have them in a drive which is this small. What happens is some of these softwares are good, some of them are still being worked upon. So, like, for example, I think about 8 years back when we'd use drums, we could tell easily if it's produced or if it's played live. But the more and more we keep going in, live drums are not being recorded as much anymore, especially for films. Because in films, we need to finish songs fast. Music production is an all encompassing sort of space. So, like, you need the tune, You may or may not need the words to really produce, but it's always good to have words because you know what the emotion is. The tune, you can have one line of a tune, like say, like in the case of one of the films I worked on, which you spoke about, it like the tune was just Om Deva Deva Om Deva Deva Namaha Namaho Namaho. That's the main line of the entire song. Now, in that, the composer he had to tell me what kind of a space he wants me to produce the track in. So he said, I want you to have a sort of bit more of a modern approach, but don't lose the soul of what's being said. It's almost like a prayer in some sense, right? But it's a track to which they dance to. So your beats need to be like that, but you can't lose the soul. So music production is basically creating everything around the tune, the beats, the bass, which could be your piano, your guitars, your drum, other smaller ethnic things, or whatever it might. But you as a producer have to realize how to place which part. Like you got to realize where to place the drums, where to place the bass, where the bass comes in from, where the piano should start, what kind of synths to use. That is music production, and I think in this day and age, for anyone to be a new composer, I would think it's really important to know at least basic production because it helps with actualizing your song. Like a tune can just be in your head or in like a voice note, but how do you show it to somebody and say that's how I want it to sound when it plays on a film, for example. So production is a really big part of the process. Without that, there's no final song, but without the tune there's no production. So it's like a symbiotic relationship in some sense.
How do you come up with like the beats for a song?
I don't know. I actually don't know. Like there's I think a lot of these things, right? Like they come with time. I learned when I was younger, I learned a few percussion things and all that, and that I think that helps me till now. I think it's always great to be curious like yourself and try to learn like a few things here and a few things there. It's not I don't like I'm not of the opinion that you need to like really really ace one thing. You can do multiple things too, and as a producer you have to do multiple things. Like I didn't know how to play the piano when I started music production, but it is how we do most of our work. Like the piano is like the keyboard is the main thing which is connected. So I just picked up a book, and in that time we used to have CDs, which don't exist anymore. But but I just used a book, and with that it had a guide, and I learned to play the piano as best as I could. Um, and then because I played like nearly every day, I just practiced more and more and more and more. But I still can't read sheet music and all that at all. With creation, the process becomes better with time. It's like the more you grow up, you sort of live a bit more, you understand a bit more. You understand the most important thing in music production is to really understand what not to use, because you have so many things. Like within my hard drive, I've got a bunch of things. Now I can't use the same thing everywhere. If I've got 40 kinds of synths, I can't use them all for each song. So it becomes a process of learning the tools you have. And along with that, when you grow up, I think you understand things that sort of make you create more and create better, if I may, because you have to live some amount of life to really know what you're feeling and to really articulate what you're feeling. When I was younger, I used to think my songs are really really meaningful, but I look back now and it was just a small thing. You know what I'm saying? So that's not to say that you shouldn't create. You should keep creating. As young as you might be, you should start off and keep on just creating, because practice is the most important thing. There's no shortcut to being a good musician without continuously working on your art form every single day. That's the most important thing. Like I've got days where I don't have work sometimes, where I just feel like I just need to play. I need to do something. So I sit and I just start playing, and I may not make something which makes sense. It may not sound great. From 10 songs which come out in a year, I think I junk around 35 or 40, and then I get the 10 which I want. So you have to keep doing that. You have to keep push yourself, experiment until it becomes a thing that just happens. And for me right now, it feels like it just happens because I do it every single day. You know what I'm saying?
And when you're in the studio with another artist or just you, when you're, let's just say, recording a song, do you have any guidelines for what kind of flow the backing track or what kind of flow your words have to be, or is it just whatever you feel like or whatever is in your mind?
No, there's a lot of things. Like it really boils down to what I'm actually working on. If I'm working on a film song, I have a lot of guidelines. Like there is a producer, there is a director, there's a story. Like when you're making music for film, you're in service to the film. You're not making that song for yourself. And that's one of the things that I feel as artists who work in film, it's very important to understand that you are not the most important part of the process. The most important part of the process is the film, the story of the film. So if I'm working on a film, then the guidelines are a lot. Like we'll have to chat another whole episode or another day at some point to really get that. But it's a lot of things. But when I'm making a song on my own, like the last few days, I've been making like one or two songs for fun. Then I've just been thinking about what are the emotions I've kept locked up inside of me, and how can I sort of articulate those? Because I don't like confrontation. That's one of the things, but I do it well. If I'm forced to confront somebody I don't want to, I do it, but I don't like doing it. So I keep a lot of my emotions of anger, of not feeling so great, locked up for a while. So when I'm working on a song for fun, I'll think about those things and just start from there. And I think the guidelines change basis what you have to work for. So when I'm in the studio, if I'm working on my own for fun, I don't think so much. Be- and I one of the things I really try to do when I'm working on a song for fun, which is not for any film or any show or whatever else, I make it a point to in fact not use the tools I use when I'm working in film, because that makes me push myself to create something newer. And then once that makes some sense, I try to bring that into film. Because what happens is when you're working on a film or an ad or a show, whatever it is, you you don't get a lot of time. You have to work really fast. Like I have to, if a composer wants me to produce a song, I have to show them something in about a day or two. It's not like 1 week or 2 weeks and all that. It's just 1 or 2 days maximum. um so I have to move at a certain pace. So my time for experimentation is outside of my work in some sense. And then when it starts to make sense, there is when I start to bring those sounds into the commercial work as well. And I think that balance has sort of worked out well.
And that sounds really interesting. And I was wondering, do you also do like your own albums or do you mainly focus on film and TV show soundtracks?
So, so very. I think I'd like to do a lot more of my own tracks. I don't end up doing that. There is an album of mine which I've worked on I just worked on a play because I really felt like working on that play, and when I got a chance to, I thought it's a great new thing to try and do. So I started going for the rehearsals, and I would come back home because in film I have the film in front of me, so I can make all the tweaks and make it really like perfect according to scenes and all that. For a play, the soundtrack is playing. Actors might be fast on one day, slower on another day, might change their flow in some way. So you can't really make it perfect. Um, so I would go for rehearsals and I'd watch them work. I'd imprint that whole thing inside my brain, take notes. But you can't shoot that. I'd do that and I'd come home and I'd create a track and I'd send it. And luckily, in this case, it worked out. So I managed to create about 9 themes, which will be out on Spotify and Apple and all that in another few days. I think it's out on the 20th. So check that out. That's like I consider that a cross between my own work, which is not for film or whatever, and which is for something. But I would definitely like to create more music for myself, and have the time to do so. The thing is, I like more like most of us who work, it like making music is full-time job, like it's always going on. So I don't get a chance to create that much on my own, but I do it. I keep on trying.
You've also previously explained the differences between all of the things that you do, but can you highlight more the differences between producing and composing music?
It's just that, it's exactly what I said. Composition, the core of a composition is its tune. So na 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 da 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 da. That's the tune. That's it. That's all I got when I produce the track. When I produce the track, I put in the beats. I created the bass line. I created like I use synths to create the and melodic structures. I used transitions like those reverse symbols which just come up like the composition is the tune. Everything else that goes on around it falls under the scope of music production in our country.
Thank you so much, because like that
That
was
makes sense?
it does, because like ever since like started ever since I started getting like really heavily interested in music, I was always wondering, because when you look at the credits of a song, it says written by so and so, and sometimes it'll say produced by so and so, but sometimes it also says composed. So like I was really wondering what the difference is. So thank you so much.
I'll just elaborate a bit more. Composers get the major part of the credit. Now there's some contention about it that producers should get the same amount of credit or whatever it is. For whatever it's worth, I think without a composition you can't have a production. A production exists solely because of the tune which is in front of us. And I know a lot of guys who might be producers like myself might not agree with me, but because I do both things, like in class, we've composed the tunes and produced them too. Because I do both things, I realize that without a tune, there's no production. Without the music composer, there's no understanding what to create. If you send me a tune as a producer, I feel it makes sense to make it lo-fi, for example. That might not work in your film. It might not work in the context of what indie artist you might be trying to create. When I produce for indie artists as well, I always ask them what they're trying to say with their tunes. What do they want me to get out of that? Because for any tune you can go many ways. It can be lo-fi, it can be electronic dance, it can be acoustic, it can be orchestral. So who's going to tell the producer what to do and what makes sense in the context of their tune? That's why I feel the composer gets the bulk of the credit.
Yeah, I mean what you said makes a lot of sense. I mean, just imagine if there was no one to direct the producers, then everything would probably be a mess, right?
Yep. And I mean, it might not be a mess, but it might not be in the context of what you need. Like, say, if you have a scene in a film which is a romantic scene, for the lack of a better thing. Now, you s- if you send me a tune which sounds something like da 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 da, but if that's the tune that comes to me as a producer, I might just add some really funky beats and ta-da, boom, ba, boom, 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 tum ta, tum ta. That won't work because it's a romantic scene in a film. You need it to sound soft. Who will tell you that?
The composer.
So the composer really, like, I think a composer's job goes beyond just creating the tune. Their job is to really, really guide their producers. And then after we are done, like, say if I've used guitars from some software, now of course it won't sound fully real. There are many things like guitars that don't sound real because you're using a keyboard to produce them, right? And it's just samples at the end of the day. And the guitars is a kind of a thing which has a lot of artifacts of its own. Like, it moves in a certain way. It's like it flows in a certain way. So you might want to get it played live. Who's going to get that done?
The composer, probably.
Correct. And they have to guide guitar player or the violin player or whatever it is, whatever they choose to get done live. They have to guide them and they have to deal with the director. There's a lot of other work that a composer in film goes through than just creating a tune.
Yeah, and you've spoken about all of this, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna need lots of equipment to do all this, right?
No, hardly anything.
Hardly.
I
So,
mean, basic stuff.
yeah. So, so that means in a recording studio, if I were to visit it, what kind of equipment will I see?
You're talking about a recording studio. I have a production studio, which is not for anyone else. It's just one room, and I don't need a soundproof room. I've been working on these. There's a friend of mine. He's a fairly well-known music producer, and he doesn't work from the same space. So he travels between the U.S. and Chennai, and I mean, I asked him. I said, "How do you work?" He said, I've got a small 25 key MIDI controller. I have a small sound card and I have headphones and I use the laptop and I have two hard disks with that. So there are guys who are doing that also and managing to get some incredible work out.
Wow, that's really cool because like online and documentaries and stuff, and also just general photos in
Mhm.
studios, both production and recording.
Mhm.
Like I've seen the people behind the studios, like some people like Metro Boomin and things, and they have really, really big, like I think it's like a big table full of things which have
Yeah,
key pads, sliders, all the volume control
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, it's of course it's ideal to have a lot of these things, but we can't forget that many of these things are really expensive.
Oh,
And as a music producer, you have to really figure out what it is you need. And what I need is a really good computer. And I have a great one. I've got a Mac Studio, which which I need for the kind of work that I do because I do some really heavy work with film scores and all as well. But for you, or like you've got a MacBook, right?
yeah, MacBook Pro.
You have a MacBook, you've got your DAW within it. All you need is a MIDI keyboard and like a really simple sound card and good headphones. Good headphones or good speakers. That's the thing to really get for yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see it, but I also have a MIDI cable that I connect to my drums,
Mhm.
and I use that to sometimes transfer transfer it into my garage band. So sometimes I
Right.
play on my actual drum set and it records into my keyboard using the MIDI cable.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's I mean, it works for you, right?
Yeah, it does.
So that's the thing. Like now, here's where it gets really funny because there are a lot of guys who say you need this and you need that and you need to do it like in these ways, but you need to do what works for you. And I saw something that really shook me a few weeks back. I'd gone for a mix to because I don't mix the tracks I work on. So I went to my sound engineer's in engineer studio, and he has a fairly fancy space, and he has a lot of those console hardware things that do a lot of really cool things and are very expensive. Um, and I saw that a lot of them weren't there. So I asked him, I was like, where's your stuff? Like, where's it all gone? He said, I have the software versions of these same things. So I said, but I mean, you have the hardware. Why would you use the software? He said, because the software now sounds much better. So, I mean, if a sound engineer is saying that and a senior one at that, then who am I to really say I need these things? I just need good. One of the things that you should never compromise on is a good pair of headphones or good speakers. But for good speakers, you need to treat your room well. Like the room I'm in now is not a well treated room, so I don't get the real response of what my speakers should tell me here. So I use headphones here. But my studio at my place is a treated room. It's not a fancy like really well soundproof room and all that. It's not like that. It's simple, but it does the job. So if you've heard any of the songs from class, most of those songs are recorded in my like like at my studio, and that's it. It's not a fancy space. I've used this sound card what I showed you now.
That's really cool. I mean, for me, what I use is just a simple Beats. I use like a Beats Studio 3, and that works well. But for you, what you do is like really interesting, and I really find it amazing how how interesting it is. Like I've always wondered so many things about like the line of work that you do, and I'm really happy that like you can answer those questions for me. Yeah,
So I've always believed, and I've been fortunate enough to have worked with the kind of guys who've not made like as like when I was younger when I worked for others, they always sort of emphasized on honing your own skill, not on buying new things. Like it's like that saying, na, a bad carpenter always blames his tools. That's an old saying. But if your musicality is not something you're working on, no new tool in the world is gonna help you. No new keyboard, no new sound card is gonna change how you sound if you're not working on your skill set.
yeah,
That's the important thing for me.
yeah. I mean, it that sounds like really useful. So to all of my listeners, this piece of advice and just these words, I think that they're really useful, and at least to me, they've brought an entire new perspective. So thank
I'm
you so
glad.
yeah.
I'm so glad.
So, like you mentioned, you worked on many soundtracks, but you also said that you worked on your own songs. Can you share
Mm.
your experiences making some of your favorite ones?
Okay. So I think the top the top favorite for me will always I think be when we were working on Kirta Samalta from Class, which is the song that sort of broke some charts or whatever you call it. I don't know what you say, but it's the song that did really well. I remember when we both Nayan and I were in the studio, and I remember we were trying to figure out what to do, and we couldn't crack the song and we were just like, what should we do? What should we do? And then we realized there's another song of ours that didn't work that had the words Girta Samalta in it, which we picked up and we chopped it up to like to make the chorus, and it's that Girta Samalta Samalta. That's what became a hit, and I didn't think it would work as well as it did, but I think we both knew instinctively that it's something new. It sounds good. It sounds fresh, and you can never tell what will work and what won't work. I don't think we're in that time anymore. Um, but what we like instinctively we knew that this is going to be the best song, like the one best in the sense of it'll do better in terms of views or whatever. It just sounded fresh and new, and I think that it feels good when when you're stuck and you're not able to crack anything, and then suddenly you have that split second where things just work. I think that's what makes this job so great, because there are days when you're just stuck and you're like, I can't do it, I can't get it, I can't. And then suddenly it just all makes sense, and I think I live for those days because it's really cool. Like when you can finally crack the code that you've been thinking about for so long, and suddenly it just works out. I think that's one of the things that makes my work so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations on all of the records that your
Thank
songs
you.
have broken.
I mean, I don't know if it broke any records, but it did really well, and I'm just glad. Like I'm glad that it got to the kind of audience that we also could not think of. I think that's the win.
And you've told me about the ones that did really well, but what about your personal favorites, songs that stay really close to your heart that might not be as popular as the other ones that you just mentioned?
In this same album, there's a song called Undercover, which is a sort of progressive rock track in some sense. I think when I was in school, I used to be a part of a prog rock band as my school band and all that. And ever since then, I hadn't done anything like that. Uh, So when we made that track and when I got to play the guitars in the way I wanted to, and we got to create a certain kind of drum pattern and a growth in the song that's kind of a slow burn. It slowly grows and just like becomes this huge thing. Um, Therefore, progressive rock. um, I think that was something really special for me. I think that's and I got to sing that song also, so I'm extremely happy about that because singing is something I don't actively pitch for as part of my work. It's a thing I do if I have the chance to do it. Um, and yeah, it was great fun. Like it was great fun to do, and class was actually like a really cool album to have been a part of. Like I can't tell you how hard it was when we guys were doing it because we had to finish 10 songs in about 8 months and it was an everyday process. But when we got done and we heard the songs, we like I don't think like it's one of those things that like because they allowed us to do what we wanted to do, and it led to a point where when we heard our tracks back, like mixed and mastered for the first time, I think it was a really great feeling. Like it was a great feeling to know that this too can be a part of films because it's not a traditional film album at all.
The songs, the way you describe them, sound really good. So to all of my listeners, again, I think you should definitely check out his music. I mean, I personally have heard a few of your songs, and
Mhm.
I think they're really nice. I really enjoyed them.
Thank you, man.
So, who are your musical idols though? Because you're a really successful musician yourself, but who are the people that inspired you to do what you do today?
Um, I think they were all like all the guys of in inspired me are guys who are a part of my life in some sense. To start with, I'd say my mum because she's a classical singer. So I have what I have thanks to her. Then my first mentor was my guitar instructor in school, Anupam Sen Gupta. He's a blues guitar player and he does a bunch of other things. And he's always trying to do something new. Like it might not be linked to music. He's made a film. He's done corporate things. He's done a lot of things, and I think that's it's such a cool thing to have that drive to constantly want to do new things. He's always been like he's still a part of my life in a big way. Like I chat with him once every 3 4 months, and then Amartya Ahut. He's one of the biggest composers in ads. He took me in at a time when nobody actually knew me, and I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot of life. I think I've learned more about life from him than music because we talk more about things that pertain to our existence. Whenever I have to make a big choice, if I have to just like I don't know if I have to go and work for somebody big or whatever, I first ask him what he feels about it. And it's not like I have to ask him or anything. He never makes me feel like that. But his advice is like it's really great. Um, then I worked with a music producer called Abhijit Agani. Now Vagani is one of the biggest music producers in films. Um, and at the time that I worked with him, I wasn't planning to become a music producer. He had actually called me to sing, and he asked me to play some of my own songs. So I played him some of my own songs, and he said, "Do you want to join my team?" So on a whim, I said yes, and I joined his team. Like in one day, I was a part of his team, and we used to be 12 of us there. Initially around 8 of us, and then 12. Then Nayantara also joined that team at some point, and then we started working as a duo in a sense because of Amartya, and like we met because of him, and then at Vagani's place, she also joined because she also wanted to become a music producer, and then we just started working as a trio because of a film which came our way. It's a very big privilege to be able to work with a musician whose work you're really fond of, whose outlook to life is a big part of something that like is something that makes you learn. I think you should always be surrounded by individuals who help you grow, not just in your profession or whatever in life, and who help understand things. Like we're not the same at all. So it's a really big privilege for me to get to work with her every day. So I think these are I wouldn't say my idols, but these are the guys who've sort of made a huge impact on my musical career, and I'm incredibly grateful for them.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that we wouldn't have so many really great sounding soundtracks and pieces of music without them.
Absolutely not. Like they're really special. I think, and that's another like one of the things which I realize, and I keep on saying it. I don't know why I use this word a lot, but I think learning to be grateful for the ones around you is a big thing. Um, it's not at the end of the day, a song will come and go, a film will come and go, but the people around you really matter. And I think that's something which I've which I learned. I think I've learned in the last 10 12 years of being a part of the industry.
I mean, they sound like really good people for helping you so much. I'm pretty sure that you're super thankful for them. Yeah. So you described how they helped you become who you are today, but Can you help anyone who would want to become a music producer or composer? Can you guide them through how one becomes one?
I try with Vedant. I try once in a while. I get interns at my place. I take on some. I don't take on some because I also work from home. So I don't want to have a huge team just at my place constantly. So I have one intern at a time. But I have to say something that I think, like, it's amazing that I can have this chat with you, because you're at that age where I feel a lot of young kids need to sort of understand that learning is a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. I can't give whatever I know and then you don't receive it. So what happens many times is I've tried to help somebody, uh, but their focus is not the way it should be. Um, there are things like you have to really put your all into doing what we do, because learning music production is one of those things in life that initially especially needs a lot of time. It's one of those things where when they say that I've worked for 14 hours in a day or 16 hours in a day, it needs that. You actually need to keep on failing. You have to fail a lot to understand what you don't want from your sound. Because if you don't fail at it, you're never going to realize what the good things are within your toolkit. So I think you have to spend a lot of time and a lot of energy. And I mean, I've made a lot of sacrifices. I've missed a lot of birthdays, weddings, lots of these kind of things, just so that I could be at work. And I'm not trying to romanticize that, but I think music production does need time. It needs a lot of time, and focus has to be on point. So another thing which I sort of realized a bit later is that focus will not come from just the time you put into a production. It also comes from trying to lead a healthier life. You got to work out, you got to eat right, you got to get some sleep. I'm from a time when sleeping for 8 hours was like, you can't sleep so much, man. You gotta sleep for two hours and work and work for 18 hours a day. I think we can find the balance. I think it's important because if you're in this for the long run, you gotta be healthy too. That's also important.
Thank you so much for the advice. I think it's going to be really useful for any aspiring music producers or composers, and it's also going to be really helpful for me because one of my career options that I'm actually thinking of, because I'm really interested in it, is probably something related to music, hopefully music production or something, or being a drummer. And I'm pretty sure that what you said applies for all things, not just in music, but all things
Hmm.
in life. So I think
Yeah.
it would be really helpful. So thank you. I think that you're a really good person to get advice from, because if
I don't know about
I-
that.
then like you you if you're giving the advice, then you've done all of these things, and because you've done all of these things, then it's made you the great musician that you are today.
Thank you, man. That's very sweet of you. I hope so. I don't know, but yeah, one can only keep trying.
Beyond your own music that you've made, what's your favorite song and who is your favorite artist?
One of the bands that inspired me to do what I do now is this band from our country only. It's called Advaita. Um, Advaita was one of the pioneering fusion bands of my time around 2009-10. They still exist, like they still play shows. Their keyboard player, Anindo Bose, he's also somebody who's really been there for me in a sense and has also inspired me in a huge way, because I used to sing with this massive choir, where we used to be about 60 of us on stage at one time. And there was a mix of professional singers, amateur singers, new singers, whatever. And I think Advaita in part was formed from that group. So I actually got to know them personally, many of them, and watching them play was, I mean, I don't know of many greater joys I've had in life than actually watching Abeta play live, and I've had a chance to watch them live a bunch of times. Um, More recently, there's this Icelandic artist called Olafur Arnalds. I heard his work in this TV show called Broadchurch many years ago now, and ever since then I've been following his art. It's amazing. He's so good. I love Icelandic tones. They're very mild, and I like that.
And what's your favorite song?
I
Like,
don't have a favorite song.
no?
No. But actually, I don't listen to a lot of music. That's one thing which I should point out and say, like, I'm not that guy that you can turn to and say, bro, what's going on? What's the new stuff out there? I want to hear it. I'm not that guy. I a lot of my time goes into creating. So when I'm done, I actually don't want to hear anything. I just want to watch something, or I want to not hear anything. I it's funny, but I say this a lot. Parties with musicians I go to once in a way, and those are the parties where when no song is playing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like that at all. I love listening to music. Whenever I have the chance, I put on my headphones and just play a
Yeah,
mix of music.
yeah, I love it too. It's just that I think in the recent times I've not had the chance to do it so much. So
Yeah.
what I did is that I bought myself a record player so that I have to hear albums from start to end. Daft Punk is incredible. I really love their work. So that's an album I'm really fond of. It's not one song. I've heard, like I have the record for it, and I think it's in LPs. So I've heard that a bunch of times.
Yeah. I've heard a few of their songs as well. I think there's
Very cool.
two with The Weekend. On,
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah. Those are the ones which I've listened to. So you explained that after you're done with your work making music, you like to just relax, right? So what are your hobbies? What do you do to relax?
I mean, I'm guilty of watching a lot of Netflix and Amazon shows and all that. I love long form. I love that you can tell stories in a longer way. Um, I love watching stuff. It's great fun. When I'm at my parents' place, um, I like to be outdoors a bit more because where they live close to Pune is very conducive to sort of being outdoors, and we have a lot of those things which we can do over here. So I mean, I go to swim. I mean, as of 3 days back, I started to take golf classes because we have a golf course here. So I'm 4 days into playing golf now. I think after we're through, I might go and like just hit some golf balls at the range. Um, so I just like doing things, man. There's not anything specific which I'm incredibly fond of.
Those sound like really interesting hobbies. I've only played golf like a few times, mini golf.
Yeah, yeah.
It was still really fun. Um, I
It's
also
another deep focus game. It's a lot of focus. That's what I'm understanding. Like the physical side of it is one thing, but the mental focus you need, like because your eye is always supposed to be on the ball. You're not supposed to look left, right, in anything. Your eye should be on the ball. The second it moves a bit or you change your stance a bit, like the ball will go flying somewhere else.
thank you so much. Thank you like really so much for coming on my show and making the time. It was really fun to talk to you, and
Thanks
I
for
learned
having me.
a lot.
It's very cool. I'm incredibly impressed. Like this is so great.
Yeah, like thank you so much. I'm actually really happy that I got to talk to you because like I said, music is one of my favorite things in the world and music production is I really like that as well.
I forgot to tell you what made me become a music producer. What made me become a music producer is that I could not afford to get my songs produced by another music producer because it's generally it's not cheap, right? You can't just go to a producer and say I want you to do my song. They also charge money. So that's what drove me to really pursue music production. I didn't know it would become such a big part of my career, but it did. And for for whatever it's worth, like I think it's one of the most beautiful um chance things that sort of happened in my life because I didn't plan for it. It just happened.
When you mentioned like how much fun you have creating beats, it like I also realized that when I even during just music class in school, even if it's like a assignment that I have to complete for a grade, I still just have so much fun doing it that
Hmm.
I completely forget that it's even an assignment. Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for sharing all of this with me. I mean, yes, I completely agree with everything that you said. It's like so useful, everything that you said, and it's also so interesting and amazing all at the same time. And I'm just really happy, and I'm really thankful for you coming on my show.
No, I'm so grateful, man. Thanks a lot. Cool. We're done.
Yeah, we are. So thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, man.
Dear listeners, follow my Facebook page, Curious Vedant, to get updates on my upcoming episodes. To listen at leisure on your phone and get notified about future episodes, subscribe by searching for Curious Vedant wherever you get your podcasts, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and many more. You can also listen to my show on curiousvedant.com. Thank you for listening to Curious Vedant, and don't forget to rate and leave comments.